Kind-hearted English viewers, subscribe, like, and share my revenge tales. Your small kindness fuels justice. Today's story is hilarious, a little petty, but oh so satisfying. It's about a roommate who thought he could freeload forever, until I pulled the plug on his big date. Literally. What do you do when your roommate refuses to pay rent, eats your food, and acts like a king in your own apartment? You make sure karma shows up at the worst possible moment. In this case, right in the middle of his romantic date. If you've ever had a lazy, freeloading roommate, this revenge will warm your heart. Stick around, because the fallout is better than anything I could have planned. When I was in my early 20s, I shared a 2-bedroom apartment with a guy I'll call Ryan. At first, Ryan seemed chill. Friendly, laid back, always cracking jokes. He moved in when my old roommate left suddenly, and I figured splitting the rent would be easy. Wrong. The first month came around, and when I asked him for his half of the rent, he said, "Oh man, I'm a little short right now. I'll pay you next week." Next week turned into 2 weeks. 2 weeks turned into, "Can you cover it this month? I'll get you next time." Spoiler, there was no next time. Ryan had money. That was the worst part. He always had cash for beer, takeout, new video games. He even bragged about buying expensive gifts for girls he dated. But when it came to rent or bills, suddenly he was broke. Meanwhile, I was working 2 jobs to cover both halves of the rent so we wouldn't get kicked out. And Ryan? He'd invite people over, make a mess, and raid my groceries like they were community property. I confronted him multiple times. "Ryan, you've got to pay your share." "Relax, man. You're too uptight. I'll sort it out." He never did. The final straw came one Friday night. I came home exhausted from a long shift, and Ryan was in the living room setting up candles, music, and a fancy dinner. "Big date tonight," he grinned. "She's coming over in an hour." I looked at the table. Wine, steak, fancy side dishes, all bought with my groceries. The same groceries I had budgeted to last me the week. "You used my food?" I snapped. "Relax," he said with a smirk. "I'll replace it." Of course, he never replaced anything. And that's when the idea hit me. If he couldn't pay rent, if he couldn't respect my food, maybe he'd learn respect when his date night went up in smoke. The breaker box for our apartment was in my bedroom closet, and I knew exactly which switch controlled the living room and kitchen. My plan was simple. Wait until his date arrived, let them get comfortable, and then, click. Lights out, music off, dinner ruined. His date showed up around 7. She was dressed up, clearly expecting a nice night. Ryan turned on his charm mode, playing music, pouring wine, from my bottle, of course, and bragging about the apartment like he owned it. I stayed in my room, waiting. 15 minutes in, I heard laughter, clinking glasses, the sizzle of steak on the stove. That's when I made my move. I opened the breaker box, flipped the switch, and instantly, silence. The music cut out. The lights went black. The sizzle died. I heard Ryan swear loudly, then scramble. Hold on. Must be a power outage." I sat in my room, smiling in the dark. Ryan tried to save the evening. He lit candles, joked about it, but his date wasn't impressed. She asked why the hallway lights were still on if it was a power outage. He stumbled over excuses. It must just be this unit. Weird, right?" She wasn't buying it. The final blow came when she asked about the rent. I guess he had told her he was responsible and independent. But in the dark, with half-cooked food on the stove and me in the other room laughing, the truth slipped out. I couldn't resist. I walked into the living room with a flashlight and said sweetly, "Hey Ryan, since you still haven't paid your half of the rent this month, I had to cut the power to save money. Hope that's okay." His date's jaw dropped. She grabbed her purse and left within minutes, muttering something about not dating liars. Ryan stood there, red-faced, furious, but powerless. The best part? He didn't just lose the date, he lost his reputation. Word got around our friend group, and nobody wanted to hang out with a freeloading moocher. 2 weeks later, he moved out. He still owed me money, but honestly, the look on his face that night was worth more than any rent check. That moment when the music died, The lights cut out, and Ryan scrambled to save his perfect date night, only to be exposed in the worst way possible. That was karma served cold, or, in his case, half-cooked. Sometimes petty revenge speaks louder than arguments. Ryan thought he could freeload forever, but all it took was one flipped switch to flip his world upside down. So tell me, what would you have done to a freeloading roommate like Ryan? Would you have kicked him out sooner, or gone for a petty prank like I did? Drop your answers in the comments like this video, and make sure to subscribe for more real-life justice stories.